Today, we are closing out a decade of gaming. It's been a good 10 years. I'm Jeff Porter from Game Stinger, and let's talk about it. 10 years, closing out a decade. It's been a long time. We've seen a lot of great advancements in gaming, from graphics to storytelling to even voice acting. It's gotten so much better. There's so much to get to. We're going to try to get maybe our top 5 or 6 games from the decade. It's going to be really hard. There was a lot of great titles released, but we're going to try. We're going to work through it. It's going to, not everybody has the same favorites. Not everybody plays the same games. So it's hard to do a top 10 or a top 5 or anything like that, because you're automatically going to leave somebody out, right? It doesn't matter either way. So what I did, I tried to pick some games from maybe some different genres that still had an impact over the last 10 years, that stood out from the rest. And we're going to go through them, and we're going to discuss them a little bit, see what you guys think. And that'll be the episode for today. So starting off, for games of the decade, we're going to get in here. It's a top 5, but I may have squeezed in a little extra on a little top 6, just because it's too hard. It's too hard to pick, right? So, all right, let's start off here with maybe something that's a bit of a shoo-in, something that's kind of obvious. Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Why was this game so important? Chances are there's more than one person in your family who played it. Skyrim kind of broke that barrier, right? That not just, you weren't the only gamer anymore. Maybe your little brother started playing it. Maybe your parents started playing it. Maybe grandma played Skyrim a little bit. Skyrim got to everybody. It was such an amazing thing that kind of showed that games are for everybody. It doesn't matter the genre. It doesn't really matter. It's about magic and swords and dragons. Everybody loves that stuff for the most part. I think we can all agree. You throw in dragons and magic, we're in, right? That game saw so many bridges built to introduce new gamers, to bring in old gamers, because the Elder Scrolls has been going on for a long time. I'm a big fan of Morrowind, right? That's one of my favorite titles. I remember playing that quite a bit. Skyrim just kind of took everything and made it into one huge adventure. There's so much you could do. It broke down so many barriers. So that's why it's on the list for top 5, 6 games of the decade. Going into the next one, again, some of these may seem kind of obvious, like you're not really tearing down any boundaries there, Jeff. I get it. But I think it's obvious that when everybody has kind of the same general consensus of the top games of the decade, it kind of shows that those games did stand out, right? So GTA 5. Rockstar has done it again. Grand Theft Auto 5 came out and it completely blew everybody away. Not with, the trio of storytelling, the bouncing back and forth between characters, the immersion into the world. Go do whatever you want. Go play a game of tennis. Go play golf. Go steal a car. Go rob a gas station. Pretty much whatever you wanted to do, you could do it in GTA 5. And then you could do it online. We saw online in GTA 4, and it was just kind of, you get in with your buddies, you drive around in the same car, and you go try to blow people up. It didn't have quite the same immersion, the same element that GTA 5 brought to it. You could join in a group, you could go do the heists, you could go do missions, you could grief other players. There was so much that you could do, and so much that you still can do, right? You get on GTA 5 online right now, you're guaranteed to find so many people. They're still playing it, they're still enjoying it, much like the other titles on this list. It gets better with, there's missions, the racing missions that you can do. You can race against other people. You can edit and make your own races. You can make your own games. It just adds to the overall element of GTA 5. So after you get through the amazing story, after you play through with each of the characters and you see how each of them turns out, and of course you can pick and kind of choose depending on the choices that you make. But overall, the story is really what's important for GTA 5. The online is, is just a bonus, really. We're going to go down and we're going to do, since we are already talking about Rockstar, I think it's important to talk about Red Dead Redemption. Red Dead Redemption 1. Yeah. Red Dead Redemption 2, the new release, has blown everybody away. I get it, right? They took what was cool and they made it bigger. They made it better. There's more weapons. There's more missions. The story is enormous. But we're talking about the top 10 or top 5 games of the decade. We kind of knew what to expect going into Red Dead Redemption 2. When Red Dead Revolver came out, it was something new. We were excited. And we got to be a cowboy. And then Red Dead Redemption came out. Completely took everybody by surprise. It was something that Rockstar was famous for with the Grand Theft Auto games, creating the immersive world, letting you kind of pick and choose your adventure, but not to the extent that we saw in Red Dead Redemption. It took us by surprise because we didn't know what to expect. We knew it was Rockstar, we knew what they had done before, but that Red Dead Revolver game, yeah, it was awesome. It was a lot of fun. Who doesn't like being a cowboy? We didn't know what to expect with Red Dead Redemption. We didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. And then when that came out, it was like I said, it's part of the games of the decade. And it's one of the most memorable releases. And like with every other title on this list, up until the release of Red Dead Redemption 2, you could still find tons of people playing it. I'm sure if you went on right now, there would still be tons of people playing it, even with the release of Red Dead Redemption 2. I'm sure there's still a score of people who haven't gotten Red Dead Redemption 2 yet. It's just a matter of finding what works and finding and building upon it, right? They found what worked and they built upon it with Red Dead Redemption 2. We knew what to expect. We knew what we were getting ourselves into. Not with the first one. So that's why it's on the top couple games of the decade, right? So I wanted to get the two. It's pretty crazy that Rockstar has 2 of the biggest titles. So this next game, I'm probably going to get some flack for, but it makes it to the list. All right. Fortnite. Not a big fan myself, all right? But we cannot deny the impact that Fortnite has had on the industry. It has completely, it makes all the monies, right? It makes all the monies. It has everybody playing. It's got Star Wars in it now. They showed a clip of Star Wars before the release. They've got their ends. Originally, I downloaded Fortnite for the actual game part because it was like a survival sandbox. You know, you make your base and you survive and see how long you can go. And it's like a $20 base game. What nobody expected was the Battle Royale free-to-play download of Fortnite that would blow up like it has. It's found its way into popular culture. Like I was talking about with Star Wars, it was featured in Avengers Endgame with Thor and his buddies sitting around playing Fortnite. It's almost unbelievable with what Fortnite has accomplished. So you don't have to be the biggest fan. You know, I get it. It is kind of repetitive. It's got the reputation of being a child's game. But with that said, in the last 10 years, it has had such an enormous cultural impact. And for the top games of the decade, you kind of have to look at all aspects of the game. You have to take in the player downloads, you have to talk about the money, you have to talk about the pop culture impact. And Fortnite kind of tops all of those. It's been enormously successful. So love it or hate it, it is one of the top games of this decade. Okay, we're going to talk about 2 more games here because there is 6 on the list. Because the 2 Rockstar games, I kind of counted those as 1. So it's my show. We'll do it this way. So the first one I want to talk about is Zelda Breath of the Wild. Zelda Breath of the Wild released in 2017 for the Nintendo Switch when that was just releasing. And it kind of reinvented the Legend of Zelda series. It kind of took it from the top-down action adventure game and made it into an in-depth RPG with kind of what I mentioned at the beginning of this is voice acting. Something that's so small kind of made a huge impact on the Zelda game. It was kind of interesting. It was kind of weird, hearing the voices of those characters. And it kept with the original, it kept with the normal, it kept with the feeling of it, but it added in new mechanics. It made it kind of a new gameplay for everybody to enjoy, and it's Zelda. Everybody loves The Legend of Zelda. It's a game the franchise has existed for decades. And in this decade, to still be going strong, to come out with Breath of the Wild, to make something truly special, that's why it's on the top 6 games of the decade. So for the number 1 game, I'm not really doing these in any particular order. I don't want you to think that I'm going 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is the best game of the decade. These are all just kind of the top 6, right? That kind of everybody seems to agree on. I think it's pretty down the line. Maybe I'll do a video more of like my personal top 10 of the decade or something, because then you can kind of get into some of like the independent releases. You can get into the other things that maybe not as many people have played, and you can kind of get a little bit more controversial with it. But for the top 6 games of the decade, I think these are kind of straightforward. So not number 1, but the last one on the list is The Last of Us. The Last of Us it kind of had the trifecta of a perfect game, right? It had the gameplay aspect of it. It was fluid, you had control, and everything just kind of went and fit together perfectly. It had the graphics aspect of it, because when this came out in 2013, the graphics were top of the line. It looked amazing, it played amazing. And then the trifecta is the story. So you have the story, the graphics, and the gameplay all coming together and kind of the pinnacle of what is a great game. It took these 3 things on the PS4 and made it into one of the best games I've ever played. Now, like I said, I'm going to try not to get too into like my personal preferences, but The Last of Us is definitely deserving to be in the top 5 or 10 of the decade. It combines each of these aspects to make the perfect game. You feel for the characters. And now the sequel is one of the top anticipated releases of next year. So it's almost fitting that The Last of Us is kind of a top game of this decade. And going into the new decade, it could kind of be a defining era. It could kind of be the game of the next decade. So those are the top 6. I know it's not really a top 5, not a top 10. Those are kind of the top 6 games of the decade. I don't know what you think. Those are kind of like I said, the general consensus. Let us know what you think. Thank you for watching Game Stinger. I'm Jeff Porter, and I'll see you guys next week.